Hello, welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson. This is the show where we talk about truth, hope, and change along the lines of THC. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca join us for the 420 session as always. Jerry Martin will be not able to be here this week, but we'll be talking a little bit about what's going on with his case. We'll have an update from the RV, Healing Wave CSP Ganja Mobile, and all about the CSP and what's going on with that. And we'll start again today talking about what's going on in our world, and that is corruption. The Trudeau cartel is attempting to steal cannabis from poor people. That's what's going on. Legalization was brought in, which was supposed to end the high prices of cannabis and is supposed to free the people and the people using cannabis. There should be no penalties for pot, period. It's ludicrous that there ever was. It's time to end this and not transition into a new type of prohibition where there's just a big gang in town that's taken over most of the sales that's going on in Canada and other places around the world that are all starting to follow the same model of so-called legalization. This is completely wrong. This is a hostile takeover of the cannabis industry with maintaining prohibitions for all the people that have been raking in, ordinary people's money and ruining ordinary people's lives by trying to prohibit this plant so that people can make a bunch of money. It's always just been about money. This has never been about people being harmed by cannabis or people using cannabis. I see there's a new campaign going on now where some idiot in the UK and a newspaper stupid enough to print it or irresponsible enough to print it is just speculating that maybe this person that killed some people was probably a stoner at the time, because we all know that cannabis induces violence, right? Well, I'm sure the vast majority of people who see that type of nonsense are going to see it for what it is. But there's always a percentage of people that buy into that. And there's certainly all those people that are involved in prohibiting cannabis that love those stories, because then they get to feel like they're maybe doing something right instead of something completely wrong, which is what they're doing. Legalization needs to free the plant and everybody that's involved with the plant. There should be no penalties for anything to do with cannabis. My goodness, the world could use way more cannabis than we have already. I know that out in my broadcasting audience, which goes around the world, there are so many people out there that are just green with envy, except they're not green with weed, because they see that we have such good cannabis and freedoms here in British Columbia and other parts of the world where we can consume cannabis, and it's fairly easily to get. It is not easy to get in lots of places around the world. It is not easy to get in lots of places in Canada even. So until it's absolutely, totally easy to get for everybody, we don't have enough. So there would be no penalty for any farmer that would be growing too much cannabis. I mean, that would be ludicrous. Do we give penalties to farmers who grow too many blueberries or too many strawberries or too much lettuce or too many tomatoes? The only penalty to those people is that they got more of what they can get rid of, and then they have to figure out what to do with it. There's no penalty imposed by government because they decided to grow too many blueberries. That's ludicrous. And it's just as ludicrous, it's even more ludicrous when it comes to anything to do with restrictions on producing cannabis. Cannabis is one of the most beneficial plants on the planet. We should have everybody growing it. Everybody that can grow it should grow it. We should have way more than enough for everybody. But that's not the way it is. It's not the way it ever has been, or for, the last 100 or so years here. It hasn't been like that at all, because governments, on behalf of corporate interests and greedy bastards, have decided that it's okay for them, even though they're paid taxpayer dollars to protect the public, to use that money to protect those industries instead. And that's certainly the case with cannabis prohibition and the attempt to prohibit cannabis. It has enriched so many people. It is only protecting interests of other commodities that people have. It does not in any way protect the public by trying to prohibit cannabis. No benefit to society whatsoever. It has to be then delivered through an underground marketplace that raises the price to $10 a gram because they're facing jail time and other huge penalties if they're caught. Ludicrous. Ludicrous. It needs to stop a long time ago. In fact, we're way past due for there being a serious apology for the efforts that were taken and the money that was spent and the lives that were ruined in the decades that led up to this. We need an apology. We deserve an apology. Are you kidding me? It was so wrong then. It's not all of a sudden right now. It didn't all of a sudden become right overnight that adults get to walk into a store and buy cannabis, even though it's overpriced and horribly packaged and not what you want. But still, there's stores now all over Canada and the United States that say cannabis on them, and you can walk in there and purchase cannabis. It was never right to not allow people to have cannabis. It didn't all of a sudden become right overnight. It isn't because some lordly, blue-blooded, who knows what, endowed by the Creator with special power person, call himself a prime minister. It didn't take his signature and his say, okay, for it to be right all of a sudden. It's right now for you to be able to walk into a cannabis store instead of an alcohol store and purchase cannabis instead of alcohol. It's right now for a doctor to be able to say, okay, I think you should be using cannabis for that disorder, although nowhere near enough of them do, because of course they're trained, financed, brainwashed by the pharmaceutical industry to only to promote their products. That's been going on for decades too, like as if that isn't a big crime that we deserve an apology for. Nature's best medicine being purposely put down and not recommended by doctors for all these decades just to make money for pharmaceutical companies. That's a huge crime. Huge crimes all over the place. We live in a corrupt world. That is for damn sure. And we need to do something about it every chance we get. We can't put up with this. It's getting worse, not better. We need to have a democracy that's evolving into more freedom for people. That restricts the powers of government to be able to work on behalf of big corporate interests, to put in laws and regulations that protect those private, simple, small group interests at the expense of the masses of people. This legalization, this attempt to steal cannabis, is right out of the hands of sick people that are poor. Sick people that are rich, they can get cannabis. Rich people can always get cannabis. Rich people have had some of the best cannabis always. It's been a status symbol for a long, long time. The rich don't have a problem getting cannabis, and they don't care what they pay for it. You can have a store and cater to rich people and have high-priced cannabis all you want. That's fine. There's a great market for that. Lots of people want to pay lots of money for cannabis. It's a status symbol. It's been going on for a long time. But not at the expense of the poor, sick people, or even just the poor people. Poor people deserve cannabis more than the rich people, don't you think? Rich people, they got it going on for whatever reason. They're luckier than the poor people. They're not better than the poor people, and if they are better than the poor people, it's only because they're lucky to be better. They were born into a better home. They were born with better skills, with a better brain, with who knows what. But they're lucky, that's all. They're just lucky. So we as a society shouldn't be catering to their needs and letting the poor people suffer. As a society of compassionate people that care about each other and care about this planet and that care about society. If we're people that care about our society, what we care about are the people that are less fortunate. The people that haven't been born with a silver spoon in their mouth. That haven't been born into riches and riches of physical abilities and mental abilities. Just because they were born into less fortunate circumstances doesn't mean they should be treated more like discriminated against because of that. They should be raised up by those people that are lucky. But unfortunately, those people that are lucky in many cases are also not very ethical. And not only do they not care about the poor people, they despise them. They think they're better, somehow by choice. That they were smart enough to choose better than the poor people. No, they were lucky enough to know how to choose better than the poor people. Or they had choices poor people didn't have. Or they didn't have the stuff that poor people have gone through. They're just lucky. And our society shouldn't be catering to them just because they're the ones that have the money. It's upside down and backwards because of that. We need to protect the poor people from the rich people, apparently. That's what's worked out to be the case. The rich people, given the opportunity to make policy and decide who gets helped and who doesn't, and how much they get helped, and what laws get put into place, and who gets protected and who doesn't, look what they've done. We've got a world here where anybody that's disadvantaged is seriously even more disadvantaged by the state. Our government, our justice system, all of it is geared towards protecting the rich and making it easy for them. You get a fine for something that everybody gets a fine for. If you have lots of money, that fine is nothing to you. You have no money, that fine could be everything to you. You have barely enough money, and now you get a fine, and you've been holding it together. You got a vehicle on the road so you can get back and forth to work, but you're barely holding it together. And then the government comes along and imposes some fine on you for something, and it knocks your whole world apart. Now you can't pay the fine. Now they won't renew your license. Now you can't drive your car. And you cycle downwards. May as well sell the car. Now you don't have a car. Now you may as well get a lesser place to live. Or maybe you just get booted right out and you can't even find a place to live. Many people, even people that are doing okay, they're still only a month or two of not having their income away from living under a bridge or living in a tent somewhere. Or trying to knock on their neighbors' and friends' doors and say, can I have a couch for a little while? It's going on all over the place. We're all pretty close to being poor, except for a small percentage of people that have more than enough. And unfortunately, they're the ones that are dictating policy. They're the ones that Trudeau caters to. They're the ones that have the ear of those people that can make policies because they have the money to get into those positions to have that ear. And they have the ways and the means to do it. We need to have those people in those positions have front and center the needs of those people that are less fortunate. And that, believe it or not, hits right smack in the middle of cannabis. Because cannabis can really help people in their lives. Lots of people have trouble with sleeping, and that affects their whole life. They can't get enough sleep to function properly. They can't hold a job. They have trouble in their relationships. Their health is deteriorating, all because they're not getting enough sleep. A good indica of cannabis can really help people sleep. It's a miracle for people when it comes to helping them sleep. I've met so many people that have told me that. And one person in particular that always stands out when I talk about that is a friend of my friend Jay Green, a cousin of my friend Jay Green's in Saskatchewan. Was middle-aged, in his 30s. Struggled hard all his life with insomnia and all the repercussions of that until somebody convinced him to try to smoke some cannabis and see if it would help. And boy, did it help. And boy, was he mad about it. As he should have been. Because this should be easily, readily available to everybody. And the knowledge should be plain and simple and everybody should know it. And we shouldn't have to be confused by all the lies that we're told about, oh, cannabis might have been involved with this guy that was killing people. Give me a break. Give me a break. Those are lies. And if they are true, they're one in several million cases where something happens like that. I'm sure some bad, perverted people that have done horrible things have also smoked cannabis. Probably. But I'll bet you a lot of people would have done a lot more bad things had they not smoked cannabis. And I know a lot of people that are contemplating, being angry about something to the point of maybe doing violence somewhere or doing something that they shouldn't, and smoking a joint will bring them back to ground. Will calm them down, give their brain ability to size things up properly, think about it, and make the right choice. Make a choice based on love instead of fear. Cannabis does that. So if once in several million cases somebody that smoked cannabis also goes out and does something violent, that's not the fault of cannabis, because the truth is that in thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of those millions of cases are times when people have used cannabis to calm down, and it's a violence suppressor. But the lies are out there, and there's lots of them, and they're pretty good at telling them. We've witnessed during this pandemic about how sophisticated campaigns can be about getting people to behave in certain ways and guilting people into things or bribing people into things and all the different tactics that they have. They got a ton of them. They're very good at it. And that confused the marketplace for a long time. But the truth is, cannabis is one of the least harmful or problematic substances in our environment, and it is one of the most beneficial for a huge variety of things, from concrete to plastics to medicine to food and so many other things in between. Never was there any justification in prohibiting it or restricting it. There's no justification in over-regulating it. None of that makes any sense based on the nature of the product we're talking about. But all of that makes tons of money for greedy, unethical bastards that are in positions of influence. And they're using that influence to influence people, to influence politicians. They've bought the medical association. The petroleum industry is heavily invested in keeping cannabis out of that marketplace. It goes on and on and on. We spent previous time on this show listing many of the different industries that are profiting hugely by not having cannabis to compete with. And who's the loser in all that? The average person. You and me. And who's the real losers in all that? The below average income earners and the people that are sicker than most. The people that could really use cannabis to better their lives. That comment has been said over and over again, how much cannabis has given people their lives back. I know hundreds of people, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds I know, that'll tell you and have told me that cannabis saved their life, that they were in a very bad place in their life, going down a bad road the wrong way, and cannabis helped them, turned them around to the point where they credit cannabis with how well they're doing in their life. All poor people, all sick people, all poor sick people need to have that opportunity easily available to them. We can have cannabis for sale in stores at high prices for those people that want to pay them, but not at the exclusion of stores for people that can't afford high prices and don't deserve to be forced into paying them. Low barrier access to good quality cannabis should be a mandate of our public servants. It should be front and center what they're making sure happens. If they were really working for the public, if they really cared about the poor and the sick in our society, then they would be making sure that those people have access to cannabis. And that's not what's happening. And we've been proving that week after week, after month, after year now, on the downtown east side of Vancouver with our Cannabis Substitution Program that offers cannabis to people for free that can't afford it, at low price for those that deserve to have it at low price. We make that available for people. And we're trying to get the government's permission. And it's been 14 months and we still haven't got it. So I don't know what that's costing us, but the head of the Special Licensing and Exemption Department of Health Canada, it's 4:19. I got one more minute. You got a minute to get it together if you don't already. Head of the Special Licensing and Exemption Department of Health Canada informs us, upon inquiry, that his team is working diligently and has been every day on our application for licenses to be able to provide low barrier access to cannabis. A team of people working every day. What the hell has that cost us? What is the bill from Health Canada for 14 months of a team of people working every day on trying to decide how to allow low barrier access to cannabis in a world where the rich and powerful have made them promise that they won't allow low barrier access to cannabis? I know it's a tough dilemma for them, but we're still the ones on the hook for it, paying the bill. So, yeah, the Trudeau cartel is stealing cannabis from the sick and the poor, and that needs to be stopped. So hopefully we can do that. We'll talk a little more about that as we go. Now it's 4:20, and at 4:20 we always have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca join us for the 4:20 session. I hope you're all in possession of some cannabis, and that you too can inhale the magical vapors.
Illicit or illegal cannabis.
I hope you're in possession of non-government cannabis, just to make the point.
You're smoking today.
I'm smoking today. I've been feeling good the last week.
William Hicks sent me a message of what they did at the CSP in London. Would you like to read it?
I asked William, but I didn't give myself much time to get the answer.
He asked me to tell you. So he says, here, you want to read it? We had a great day at the London CSP today. About 200 peeps served in a sunny day. Many donation, Ben's brownies. Santa dropped by with some shake.
Nice.
D&M sisters dropped off many things. Shake, sugar cake mix, as the list goes on. Gave it all away. I feel so blessed to help. Tell Neil. There you go.
Thanks, William.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for the great work you're doing there. I guess I won't talk to Kevin. He doesn't know that I'm on the show at this time here.
But he's calling you at 4:20, eh?
Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's saying, hey, brother, it's 4:20. Maybe I should have put him on the show. He's a very interesting fellow that I've met, an indigenous Métis from back east. Mm-hmm. Very connected back there. Been working with indigenous communities to bring cannabis to his people there. And he's here coordinating things to, to try to make this work for everybody, like I would hope that they would be doing.
Yep.
We really encourage our brothers and sisters in the indigenous communities to flex their muscle a little bit with respect to cannabis. Stand up for your rights on that. Don't let the Canadian government push you around with respect to your access to plants and herbs and medicinal natural substances. And we need all the help we can get, and I really think that there's an ability there to be able to gain some ground in allowing low barrier access. Many of our clientele here on the downtown east side with the Cannabis Substitution Program are of indigenous birth and heritage, and they don't get a leg up here. Another friend of mine is involved with the Human Resources, Canadian Social Services, with respect to child custody issues to do with his Indigenous wife. And I found out through him that there's a whole separate department that deals with family affairs with respect to the Indigenous community, as there is that does with the other Canadians.
Yeah, they have the...
and it's not fair. And they're not treated well at all.
No.
And they're bullied like crazy. And so, it's really, really wrong what's been going on with the differences between how people are treated in this country. We have a racism that's going on in Canada here with respect to our Indigenous brothers and sisters that is disgusting.
Yep.
It's systemic. It's been going on for a very, very long time. There's a lot of anger within the Indigenous community, and boy, oh boy, when you find out, how they're treated, you can't blame them at all. No. I mean, I was reading, I don't know if it still stands or not. I mean, we need to have people looking into this stuff, but there's agreements and maybe it's in the charter, or I forget exactly where I saw it. Government documents, though, like official government documents stating that Indigenous people do not have personhood, that they are property of the government, and that everything that they own is property of the Canadian government. I hope that that's not still on the books. There's a lot of things on the books that shouldn't be.
No.
Even when they overturn different laws and regulations and things, they don't take them off the books. They're still there. They're just not enforced. There needs to be a real purge of those things.
Yeah.
I've talked about it a lot of time on the show. That
you can even get a fine for spitting on the sidewalk or something nowadays.
I think that's Singapore.
Is that Singapore?
Yeah, Singapore.
I thought Canada too.
Maybe, I don't know.
I thought I was threatened about it.
Probably shouldn't be spitting on sidewalks, but we also don't want government officials running around and arresting people either for that. I mean, whatever. Be responsible about where you place your spit. If it's on the sidewalk, not right on somebody's shoes.
Yeah, not somebody's shoes,
It's so weird, I mean, the world's getting more and more politically correct, corporatized all the time.
I just posted, why are we calling it Black Friday still if we're being politically correct? We should call it Blackout Friday.
Maybe we should eliminate the word black, but no, that wouldn't be right either.
No, because it's not a color. But
it is such an issue, though.
I know
so much of it. We focus our program here on THC in the form of cannabis THC for the most part. We do stray off it a little bit from time to time, but for the most part, we like to stay on sort of that issue.
Yeah.
There is something else that's come out recently. There was a study done in Kelowna. 8,500, I believe.
UBC Okanagan.
8,500 participants, 7 countries involved, looking into the benefits of psychedelics. Primarily, they were looking at people that were using psilocybe, but not all. There's other psychedelics involved as well. People self-medicating themselves, and then being, well, they said small amounts. Now, whether or not that's microdosing or whether or not that's 1.5 grams, which I don't consider a microdose for myself, but
I think anything over a gram is a macrodose.
But they didn't say microdose. They said small amounts, and so maybe anything under 7 grams would be a small amount.
Maybe, have to Google.
Don't do 7 grams, by the way. If you've never done mushrooms before, don't go out and buy a bunch and do 7 grams.
No.
That is a pretty good dose, and it's life changing. Seriously, and usually in very beneficial ways if done properly. You want to have the right scene and setting for psychedelics as best you can. You want to try to, have a goal of trying to improve yourself a little bit and have a good trip.
It's really helped me.
Yeah, and me too.
Yeah,
and me too.
It's really helped me a lot. Like my days are brighter. I've actually noticed I haven't done my reset yet, which is really good. So, I
wasn't feeling good during last week's show and for a few days there, but that was extenuating sort of circumstances. I abused my limits, as a human being. And when I do that, I pay consequences.
Don't we all, right?
It's not for free.
Exercising, helping somebody move, and then we feel sorry for it the next day because we're all sore,
it is not
right?
cost free.
No.
And I'm learning that if you have money, you should give it to some movers.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, the cat just knocked the camera.
Yeah. Either that or was it the cat?
Yeah, it's the cat.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't me. Kato, where are you?
Right there.
Hey, Kato. What's up here?
What's up there?
What's up here?
Oh, come on.
Okay.
Come on.
See if Kato will make a guest appearance on the show.
Come on, join us for 420, Kato. He says, I've already been there.
Oh, he's coming.
Is he?
Oh, yeah. He's
there we go.
Hey, buddy.
There we go.
Kato the cannabis cat?
Yes. There he goes. Yeah, there you are, Kato.
You're on TV.
Yeah, no.
He doesn't care. Anyway, I wish I could be a cat for a while. That'd be fun.
Cat book.
Maybe in...
we should do that.
Oh, I know. I've seen it. I can be a cat.
Cat book?
Well, there's a new way to live.
Yeah, a new way to live like a cat.
The metaverse.
The metaverse.
You could be anything you want, apparently, in the metaverse.
Yeah, you can be.
Yeah, maybe you could be a cat. I'm sure you could be a cat.
The new Facebook, eh?
Wow. I don't know, man. It's
somebody said that with the new meta, if you go into jail, it's no longer Facebook jail; it's called Metapause.
Metapause. That's good. That is good. Well, thank God for humor.
Yes.
God had a sense of humor. You can tell that, and He gave us one, and I'm really thankful for that.
Zuckerberg and Trudeau and all those other ones. Yeah, he definitely had a sense of humor.
So what they learned in the study is that there's clear evidence that there's a benefit with respect to associations in feeling less anxiety, depression, and stress. That's powerful.
It is.
Many people are debilitated by anxiety and depression and stress. Stress is one of the biggest killers in our world, in our environment. It takes little tolls out of most of us on a regular basis, until we're old and decrepit because of all the little bits and chunks that were taken out of us by the stress that we've had to deal with over life. Each one, knocks us back as we lose friends, as things happen, in the course of your up and down life. So, anything that's going to help with that, I don't think public servants should be telling you can't have something that would help with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's the most insane thing in the world.
Yeah.
There was hype about psychedelics back in the day, in the 60s, because the young people were experimenting with these things and the older people couldn't handle it.
Dr. Leary, right?
He was not one of the older people that could not handle it. He was one of Not all of the old people could not handle it. But, you know, some of the old pompous religious people couldn't handle that whole idea of people tripping out and hallucinating and taking, you know, all that.
Because it was different.
And because those people are the ones that have influence on the lawmakers, on our governments, well, they put in laws against that stuff without any proper evidence to justify why they would do that. This is a real big issue for me. That you know, if there's going to be something that they're using the criminal law against, they've got to do 100% due diligence on the whole dynamics of what that's all about. Is it a crime or is it not a crime? How could it possibly be a crime to have some plant material, you know, just some dried flower buds?
Yeah.
You know, I'm an adult here. I'm not some 12-year-old that's out there in the field and maybe I'm going to, you know, take some flower buds and roll them into some paper and inhale the vapors and die because of it. That's not what's going on here. I mean, that could happen, right? I mean, if you're a parent, you know it. You got to watch your kids. Your kids will do silly things. They see people smoking, they might want to try it. They don't know what it's all about. They know you don't want them to try it. So even more emphasis for them to go and try it, you know. They're going to go try it. But they might not get a cigarette. They might just walk out into a field somewhere, find some dried up plants, roll it up and go, hey, I'm smoking. And many things that you inhale the vapors of are very dangerous.
Yep.
So as parents, got to watch your kids. Got to have rules. Got to tell them the truth about stuff. Got to watch them all the time. Got to understand that they're going to do stuff even though you tell them not to do stuff. They're going to do stuff because you told them not to do stuff. That's what kids are all about. But we are adults. We have been through all of that. We had parents. We made it through. We don't need governments telling us that we can't walk out into a field, find some plants, roll it up and smoke it if we want. We're not idiots. Most of us. And not enough of us that governments have a right to tell all of us that we can't be doing that. And especially these things that have been proven, that have been found and proven over such long periods of time to not be dangerous and fatal, but to be beneficial and fun.
What the crime is how they lied to us. And how we're having heat domes and floods and all kinds of stuff when we could be been growing hemp 4 times a year, taking in the carbon dioxide 4 times as much as trees do, and we'd have lots of trees. They'd be providing us fresh air and oxygen right now. You know, like it wasn't just, you know, to tell you that it wasn't good for you when it really was.
How big is the carbon footprint of prohibition?
Oh, huge. Somebody should do a study on that. We should get our producer to do something like that for us.
Maybe John Murray will do that for us.
Really.
John's a good researcher on stuff like that.
Yeah.
How big is the carbon footprint of prohibition?
From cannabis prohibition.
Cannabis prohibition.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about alcohol prohibition.
No, although we could talk about you know, any prohibition, but sure, just you know, drug prohibition is what I like to call it. I mean, the whole war against illegal opioids to protect and prop up the legal opioid business that the medical profession has been in for a long time. That's cost us a lot as well. Yeah. In fact, and it's tied together, right?
Fossil fuels. We'd be using biofuel from the hemp, right? Fossil fuels would not be a problem in this world right now if we had gone that way, right? There's
the carbon
lots of
footprint
things that the
of
government
prohibition
has been responsible for to this planet, not just to us.
So, you know, I used to talk about what they could do about this, and everybody said, well, they need to end prohibition, and that's right, they do. Yeah, but maybe they're not sure yet, you know. Maybe there's some things we're not sure about yet. So let's just suspend it then, was my answer to that. Yeah. Let's just suspend it at this point. Like, just suspend it. Well, didn't we do that? You know?
I think we should get some hemp producing companies in Canada, allow the Indigenous people to grow the hemp, make some ropes, make clothes like they used to do that we used to trade to the trading posts in Hudson Bay because they know how to make clothes. Here's some hemp. There's some material. Let's do this. Let's, you know, put some money in their pockets too. Right?
Two things. More biomass per cubic meter than any other plant you would want to grow.
Yeah.
So as a country that grows things, we can fill that growing space
Yep.
with this amazing plant that produces all of this amazing biomass. And biomass that can be used for so many things.
So many things.
So more biomass than any other crop,
Yeah.
and usable for so many things. And yet there's large restrictions on it, and there was prohibitions on it, and all the rest of this
Well,
stuff.
when people say farmers won't want to grow it, but we're not saying the farmers. We're saying listen, let the indigenous people who have the land
Farmers
already.
want to grow cannabis.
They do.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, they do, eh?
They do. I interviewed a hemp farmer in Saskatchewan one time. I crawled up on his combine there as he was processing things. The combine in this case was taking the plants, rotating them and having the seeds fall off, taking the seeds and conveyor belting them up into a great big truck that was running alongside of the combine.
Seeds, right?
And they were used, for the hearts is what you have when you take the shells off.
Yes, yes.
And there was a fellow in Alberta that figured out how to make a machine to take those shells off and preserve the inside hearts.
Wow.
And that's what became the hemp hearts that people buy and consume. The shells are actually not a bad thing at all. There's 6% protein in those shells. They clean your teeth if you chew on them, if you have a mouthful. Our ancestors actually had healthy teeth, those that were consuming cannabis seeds as food, because the seeds would clean their teeth, better than we do with toothbrushes at this point.
See how bad they've lied to us.
Yes, and what we've lost,
Yeah.
by allowing these corporations to provide what nature had been providing for all these years in so many different ways. We've lost touch with that which nature was providing for us, and in so many ways, it's much healthier, much better for the planet. Yeah, for sure. And speaking of which, we got these hoodies that, it's just about the right time of year. Christmas is coming. These things would make a great Christmas present for somebody. We are very, very fortunate to be able to offer them at a $25 minimum donation cost. For anybody that wants to order them, you can contact myself or John Murray through the CSP, the Cannabis Substitution Program, Vancouver Cannabis Substitution Program page on Facebook. We had to get a new one because Facebook disabled our original page. Don't know why they would not want the life-saving work that we've been doing with the Cannabis Substitution Program to be a part of their deal, but maybe we can get it into the metaverse. But in any case, they disabled us, and they disabled Mary's Green Angels Therapeutics page, but she started a new one, and we started a new one. Hers is still Green Angel Therapeutics. Ours is now Vancouver Cannabis Substitution Program on Facebook. So you can find us there. Contact me or contact John Murray. We have lots of them. We have them in green, and we have them in black. We also have shirts for $10 minimum donation, good quality shirts that have the Cannabis Substitution logo on them. So now's a good time to get those, maybe enough time before Christmas. Depending on where they are, we'll ship them to you if you pay for shipping. And if they're anywhere local, we'll drive them out to you.
Ron, do we still have patches for sale?
We do still have some patches for sale at $5 each.
There you go, Ron.
Yeah.
$5 each, and contact John Murray.
John Murray is the best one to contact.
I'm going to put John's name in here.
Sure.
His link.
If you contact me, I'll probably just put you in contact with John Murray. He's a great guy. John is. I really can't promote him enough. Now working full-time in a position with a harm reduction group out in Surrey.
Oh, nice.
So that's awesome that he's doing that. That has not stopped him from supplying for us. So his little cupcakes, 100 milligram cupcakes that we give out to people here that can't be part of the program, that need something and can't afford it. They have been so crucial to our program. We make sure that nobody gets turned away here, and that's primarily because of John Murray and because of Michael the Cookie Monster, who's given us over the years somewhere in the neighborhood of 70,000 of his very, very healthy 30 milligram cookies there. And John Murray also does our graphic work for us. He's the one that came up with the logo in a collaboration with Alan Sayers. Al, I hope he's either resting in peace or having a really good time wherever he is. But we sure miss you, Al. That was a horrible loss. But Al helped us with our Cannabis Saves Lives and our Cannabis Substitution logo. John incorporated it into other graphics, and he's been really good at doing that. and numerous other things. So a big shout out to John for all the work that he does for the Cannabis Substitution Program, and he continues to be the guy that will help you get your hoodie or your t-shirt or your logo if you would like one. And it would be good to promote what we're doing here. We have a lot of trouble getting media coverage, you know. I do fairly regularly contact the media to make sure they still know about us, and CKNW and CBC and Global, and you know, I really don't get anything back from any of those people. We are a story that needs to be told, that should have been told a long time ago, that is a very big story, but we don't seem to get much. Recently we got a story from the London chapter of the CSP, Mary's chapter. Now William, and I don't mean to exclude the other people that are operating that program now as well, but it seems William might be the guy that's leading. You need somebody like Mary, who is tenacious and relentless and unstoppable. And I don't know William well yet. We're just starting to communicate.
He's here, he's watching.
Hi, William. I hope you're tenacious and relentless and unstoppable. And if not, I hope you can find people that are. It's important as the roller coaster ride of the cannabis substitution effort continues. It's all about donations, as you know, and as you know, we need to tell our people that this program is run completely by donations and volunteers. Nobody takes any money. Whatever monies come in are used to get baked goods and things for the bakers, whatever they need. Some bakers need assistance. Some just donate without any assistance. But we do whatever we have to do to make it work. And it really all runs on donations. So it's Christmas time. If you're thinking of donating to some place, the Cannabis Substitution Program would be a good one to donate to. Chris in Halifax has his East Coast chapter going there for almost 2 years now, doing fabulous work and operating on a shoestring, as we all are, and operating week to week, you know, hoping that enough donations come in that we can satisfy, in the case of both William and Chris, 200 people once a week in a lineup that come to get what they need for themselves to get off of opioids. Here in Vancouver, we did a full year of once a week. We did another 2.5 years of twice a week. And now we've done over 17 months of 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, where we allow about 300 people to come and get 420 milligrams every 4 days for free. And then the other people that also come, because this area is full of people that are very needy. And we have a long waiting list of over 200 people for the Cannabis Substitution Program here in Vancouver, waiting for government approval, which would allow us to get a bank account, which would allow us to then, you know, expand our program to have enough resources that we wouldn't have to have a waiting list. We could have perhaps some other outreach vehicles or another location, or even just a storefront in general. Just one storefront would certainly allow us to expand the program from what we're able to do from the RV that we're in. But that's where we're at this time.
And I'm sure Mary left the program in William's hands of being he would be a capable man.
It seems like
he's got Chris, Bev, Mike, and Isaac with him too.
Nice.
So.
If you can't find one relentless, unstoppable person, maybe you can put a team together. Right?
Yeah, he's got a team there.
That's right.
Quite the team there.
And I do too, actually. You know, I know that if I was to somehow have to step aside, if something happened, that there's a bunch of other people here. There's a team here in Vancouver that maybe doesn't need me anymore. I don't know.
I'm sure they need you.
I think they need me until we
Who else would sing
secure the licenses. You know. I don't do that too often.
No.
Oh, cannabis. Waiting. I guess we're waiting probably for April 20th again, and hopefully that'll be a thing again. That was fun. That was a good run of doing Oh Cannabis. But we're still...
Maybe on our trip, if we go, we could do it in every city.
Maybe.
There you go. You'll get tired of it by the time we get to the East Coast.
I don't think I get tired of it, Glenn. I kind of like it.
Well, I just know that rock and rollers say they get tired of singing the same song all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if I was on tour and it was night after night of having to do the same song always, I might. But, you know, on a tour like that, it's just one song. It's new people all the time.
Yeah.
You know, some things drain energy and some things provide energy.
Yes.
And in activism, that's very true about, you know, some things are very taxing and some things are very rewarding. And I've always found that singing Oh Cannabis really gives me a good feeling inside.
Yeah.
It provides energy for me. Yeah, so
it's a good thing.
I would do it. Yeah, I take every opportunity to do it. I relish the ability to do it. That I'm still able to do it. That I was able to do it in the first place. I'm very, very lucky.
So Neil and I were planning on doing a cross-Canada trip in July in an RV. But guess what? During the flood, the RV place burnt down.
With all of its RVs.
You may have seen it during the flood. It was they couldn't get to the fire because of the flood, and they had to let most of them burn down.
Can you imagine a fire in a flood?
Yeah.
And you can't get water to the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they had
But
water bombers.
By water.
It's surrounded by water. The water is the reason the firemen can't get there.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have brought in water bombers. I don't know why they
had
didn't.
one. They said they had one standing by, but eventually they got to do. They figured a way of getting to it.
And by that time, it was too late.
There was like 200 of them gone. Yeah. So if you happen to
Well, did the water bomber actually put it out?
No, they had him on standby to bring him in, but they said the fire department got in onto the place and started.
I guess by the time you get all that put together, the fire has already done its thing.
Yeah, so if you've got a 420 friendly RV and you want to rent it to a couple of guys like Neil, please let us know. We will pay.
and we might
or
we might be willing to
friendly.
take some sponsors.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Or a 420 friendly limousine or something.
We're certainly going to do the trip spreading education as we go.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And there's good things out there going on, and if somebody wants to use us as a vehicle to be able to get the word out for themselves, maybe it could help us with some of the costs. Yep. It's not going to be cheap because we don't want it to be cheap. We want it to be an epic trip of a lifetime, and we're not asking anybody to give us money for free to do the trip. Glenn and I are looking after all that.
Yeah.
But if we can promote something in a way that really does further a company's interests that we believe in, and that helps us with some of the costs, well, that would be great, because we're not anxious to spend a lot of money having an epic trip, but we are anxious to have an epic trip, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Yeah.
As we're getting old here, and I recommend that to people, that, do it while you're young, do it while you can. I met a lot of people in my life as an insurance restoration guy and then an activist, but mostly as an insurance restoration guy because I was going into people's homes that had issues that the insurance company was dealing with. I did that up until about 20 years ago. That's what I did for my living. And I had a lot of elderly people tell me the same basic theme was enjoy your life while you can.
Yeah.
Don't wait till you're old and retired and you think you can save your money and then you'll have money to do all the things that you enjoy. I believe in saving your money. I think there needs to be a balance there. You need a balance in how you spend your time in planning for the future and saving for the future, but also making sure that you live today, because you never know. Maybe this is your last day, and maybe you want to not have been scrimping and saving and sacrificing and being miserable for something in the future that may never not even happen, or may not ever happen. So, keep that balance, prepare for a future, but also live for today. And, in this case, the trips that I've taken across Canada in the past have been absolutely the highlights of my life.
Trips Isabel and I have taken across, and I've met the cannabis community have been really cool, too.
Yeah, and I'm sure what you and I are going to do is going to be fantastic.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So
we're going to meet all these people that watch our show.
And we'll be doing the show from the road, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, we'll be pulling over
We'll figure out how to make all that work. We might not have a Neil with us, but then maybe we will. Who knows, Depends how big the RV is and whether his girlfriend lets him go. That's probably not happening.
And if he can push the van.
He'll be with us in spirit and maybe at some sort of a technical board of some sort pushing buttons. Who knows?
He'll be there.
Big shout out to Neil, as always, for what he does to make the show work. Wouldn't be here without him. And he never gets to be on camera other than his voice every once in a while. Although I think you can see him now sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true, Neil? Are you doing shows on Friday or something on Pot TV? Oh, he's behind. He's got a lag going on. So he didn't.
Are you doing
3-second delay?
Yeah, 3-second delay. So what's going on with your show on Fridays? Is that happening? Is that a thing?
I've got 2 people, one for Wednesday and something else for Friday. But I don't want to. I don't like to talk about anything. I just like to present.
No, you doing a show. Not producing.
Well, you've done.
I don't like to talk about it too much, but there will be another CCN definitely coming up.
Okay.
There's plenty more news. So yeah.
So keep your eye on Pot TV to see what goes on here, and Neil every once in a while will make an appearance in front of a camera instead of behind it. But he's the soul of the shows in behind the cameras, that's for sure, and we sure thank him for that. So Jerry Martin is not going to make it on the show today.
Okay. I hope he's doing all right.
Struggling a little bit. It's been very tough for Jerry. We've chronicled a lot of that on the show. We wish him all our best. He's hoping to be on the show next week, and say a little prayer for Jerry, and
send positive thoughts and energy.
He's not coming through this unscathed, that's for sure, but we just hope that he manages to make his way through it and get to the other side of it. There will be another court date coming up for Jerry in January, on the 27th of January.
Oh, wow, okay.
This is going to be final submissions, deciding which ones are and aren't allowed. And at that point, if it is what they say it is, although they said this was going to be a lot earlier than this already, it's been put off a few times. But if it is what they say it is, then it will be the final day before the verdict. And then the verdict will come sometime after that, which, according to the judge a couple months ago, would be quick.
Yeah.
So we'll see on all that. But we'll see. And for those who maybe, watching the show for the first time, you don't know what we're talking about, the dispensaries in Vancouver that were open prior to legalization that were serving the medical community have been systematically attacked and shut down by the governments to protect the legal non-medical market. And Jerry Martin was a dispensary owner in one of those dispensaries, and his little dispensary in a small town in Saskatchewan for 4.5 years helped over 1,000 members, all with doctors on board, confirmation of diagnoses, trying to follow all the rules as best he could that were laid down for dispensaries here. And with legalization, was informed that he had to stop his dispensing. And that's an impossible thing to do, an unrealistic thing for a government to ask a dispensary owner to do. And in reality, a dispensary owner who was operating a dispensary illegally prior to legalization, breaking the law, risking his livelihood in doing so, is not about to stop helping the 1,000 or so people that they're helping simply because the government tells them to, because what they're doing is going to be illegal when it always has been illegal and nothing's changed for them. So, of course, Jerry did not shut down his dispensary when ordered to. He continued to try to help people as long as he could, but the bullies, the Trudeau cartel, sent in there under the guise of some police officers, RCMP or something like that, Royal Canadian Mounted Pigs, I think they called themselves, walked in there. They deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. And they barged in there with guns and badges, apparently, and arrested Jerry and seized his properties, cars included, bank accounts, everything. They've wasted millions, literally millions of dollars on just, prosecuting him or trying to bring him to court. Over 40 appearances in court to get to a day when he could actually be there and be interrogated, if you will. That's now happened. We're in 5 years now. It's 5 years since Jerry was arrested. And still this is going on. And for Jerry in particular, and likely for other dispensary owners out there, it's been hell. It's been torture, cruel and unusual punishment by a corrupt government that is acting to protect the interests of a monopoly of cannabinoids. First, it was just the street gangs who they were protecting with their prohibition, and now it's their own enterprise. It is absolutely disgusting what's going on, and Jerry has suffered greatly in that process. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that court case. It's one of the biggest ones in Canada. If they prevail, it could open the door for medical dispensaries to come back and to provide access, and hopefully also low barrier access. I hope that if the government allows for medical cannabis dispensing, that the regulations meet the needs of the poor and not restrict access to just the rich people. We'll see what happens with that. If they're not successful, there will likely be an appeal, because that won't make any sense based on the evidence that was presented. And I hope that there will be an appeal, but I hope it goes the right way. Unfortunately, if it goes the right way and they're found that the government has been in violation of our constitutional rights and are not allowing for access to poor, sick Canadians through a storefront to get reasonable cannabinoids, if that is found to be the case by the courts, then unfortunately the government may also use more tax dollars and appeal that one as well. So we'll see. It's not over yet.
Are you going to leave the good news story for next week once you read it? Or do you want to, because you were talking about appeals, so...
Bob Woolsey appealed, went on with his court case. It was found... We should do this right, because...
that's what I said we could do it next week.
Well, by next week I will have read the appeal in full and not just the report on it.
Yeah.
And so that... where did you send me that? It wasn't here, or was it? No, it must have been on Messenger, right?
Probably Messenger, yes.
Probably Messenger.
Yeah.
You're so multi-talented with respect to all that stuff.
But that's Williams.
Oh, that's Williams.
And not Glenn. Yeah,
I on the other hand,
you gotta look for Glenn.
on the other hand, am not multi-talented when it comes to technology. Yeah, I don't think it's there.
Right there.
That is it.
That's it right there.
Okay. That's not what I thought.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to read the whole thing. It's not very long. This is to do with Bob Woolsey and the appeal that he put into his conviction. The appellant was convicted of 5 counts of trafficking in Canada. On each count, he was sentenced to a $250 fine and 1 day imprisonment, to be served concurrently, as well as served ancillary orders, as well as several ancillary orders. He appeals his sentence on the basis that it was a material error for the judge to fail to consider his submission that a conditional discharge would be appropriate. Held. The appeal is allowed. The appellant's primary position on sentencing was that he should receive a conditional discharge. It was incumbent on the judge to engage with a sentencing submission and a proposed disposition that was available as a matter of law and reasonably open to the appellant in this case. Failure to do so was a material error. In performing its own sentencing analysis, the court concludes that the conditional discharge is appropriate. And Bob got all of his money back that he paid in fines.
Yeah.
So that's great as well.
Wow, eh? That's some of the good news today.
That's very good news. And Bob is a wonderful guy. He's been helping people for a long time out there. He deserves a hero's badge, not anything to do with a conviction. He provides for us as well with the Cannabis Substitution Program. He's been one of our donators for a while. We're very, very thankful for that. He also does some other things as well, and I won't specifically name them in case there's problems, because we still live in a very, very corrupt world. And, I'm just going to leave it at that. This is a very corrupt world. In fact, it is so corrupt. It is so corrupt. When you look at the logic behind the attempt to prohibit, cannabis, not so much, because... The logic behind prohibiting cannabis was based on a campaign of lies. Yeah. A very sophisticated campaign of lies that had people convinced that it made people violent and insane. Yeah. Which is why I've attacked you repeatedly since we've been sitting here and I've been smoking this.
Punching you out and poking your eyes out.
It's just what we do.
Yeah. We're throwing stuff at Neil over there.
Remember that?
Duck Neil!
Oh, man. The Three Stooges were high all the time, and that's why they were so violent with each other.
Smoking pot before the show.
It's a love drug, folks. It makes you laugh. If you're engaged in some violent encounter and you all of a sudden inhale a bunch of the magical vapors of the cannabis, all of a sudden you think about what you were thinking about and you think that's silly. You maybe have a little chuckle. You say you're sorry. I love you, brother. Yeah. And that's how it goes, because this is not a violence inducer. It's a violence suppressor. But it was a very sophisticated campaign that convinced people of that. Yep. Harry Anslinger, when he no longer had alcohol to be in charge of prohibiting, had to have something to keep all of his people busy. And cannabis was the obvious choice. And he went around convincing everyone, state, town hall meetings and all the rest of it, major media. Cannabis was this major violence-inducing substance. It was a scourge. It was horrible. I mean, they had to do everything they could to try to wipe it out. Think of the young people getting involved with this and the death and the destruction. Yeah. And so for the prohibition of cannabis, perhaps most of the legislatures that were involved in doing that were duped. Yeah. And they were convinced that this was some dangerous, addictive substance that really needed to be controlled. And they had just gone through the whole exercise of controlling alcohol in those kind of ways. In fact, not quite as drastic, because you were allowed to have alcohol. Mm-hmm. But, that exercise of conditioning the American people for accepting restrictions on their choices, had already been exercised with alcohol, even though they had decided to end the prohibition. Thank you. I need you because I'm having trouble here. I'm just stalling on every word. It's tough to talk all the time.
I know.
But they ended the prohibition of alcohol because of the violence that prohibition brought on. But that didn't seem to they didn't learn their lesson about that, because they used the same kind of violence and worse against even ordinary people with respect to trying to prohibit cannabis, or marijuana as they called it, back in the day. But the other ones, and this is what I was wanting to get to, is that the prohibition of the psychedelics was never about people becoming violent. They might do something that resulted in their own death, like thinking they could fly out a 10-story window was the things that you would hear about, which few and far, if ever.
PCP and stuff like that. Peyote.
So many lies have been told about drugs that I don't know what to believe about any of it anymore, except my own personal experience with things, And in the case of the other hallucinogenic or psychedelic drugs that have been prohibited as Schedule I drugs with no medical value whatsoever, only capable of being abused, no way to use properly, that is so wrong. That is so misclassified. I mean, absolutely used properly, the psychedelics can help people suffering PTSD, depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. Pain, addiction, obesity, the list goes on. And this is for real. I mean, the studies are in. I mean, they have the evidence that we've known for a while now. These things help a lot of people, and they don't really hurt anybody significantly. And I can't say nobody, because obviously some people have bad trips. I had a bad trip on LSD when I was a teenager. I haven't touched it since. Whether or not I don't think it's affected me negatively in other ways, but I'm sure that it did other people in negative ways. I mean, some people have been harmed by psychedelics. It can happen. You can be harmed by just about anything: the hammer, the knife, all the tools in our environment, all the things. You can harm yourself. Be careful with things. But the government isn't there to tell you can't have a hammer because some people hit their finger with it. It doesn't matter if 10% of the people hit their fingers with it. It wouldn't matter if 90% of the people were hitting their fingers with it. The government would still be out of line to prohibit hammers. 10% of the people are using them properly, and look what they're doing with them. The other 90% are learning their lesson. They're not going to always hit their fingers. It's not the hammer's fault, right? It's the person's fault. If you're hitting your finger, the hammer didn't do it. You did it.
You just didn't know it.
So
you hit your finger.
Educate people. If there's things we need to know, tell us. Hell, you'd be irresponsible if you didn't, as public servants being paid by the public to try to help the public. If we need to be warned about something, warn us. But don't tell me I can't do it because somebody else can't do it properly.
Or be truthful about the warning, too.
Yeah,
not telling us cannabis is bad for us when it was actually good.
Well, that's the corruption side of it.
Yeah, and telling us that alcohol is not so good for us when...
They're not just negligent. They are not just ignorant, negligent people who don't know any better, who bought a bunch of hype. No. There are people who have bought boats and condos and vacations with the money that they've been given by the people that want that information out there to protect their own interests. This is the corruption that I talk about every week. We don't have public servants that are serving the interests of the public. They're serving their own interests, and those interests are being supplied by corporate greedy bastards who know how to get to those particular politicians in those places of influence to get their interests protected at our expense. That's what we need to stop here. That is the root of all of this. The greed and the corruption is the root of it, but it's public servants that are not doing what they're being paid to do. If we reset our democracy so that we have actual public servants that are limited in what they're able to do, that are accountable if they ever did sell us out or get bought out for some, law that they could put in to pad somebody else's pocket and, do them a favor down the road somewhere, that they're accountable if they do that. If they get caught doing that, that is a very, very, very serious crime against the public when you've got multiple victims as you protect the interests of these minorities, and not, I don't mean minorities by colored people and people that are in our society.
Yeah.
I mean minor interest groups that are corporate, that have large leverage, that want their product or services protected at the expense of excluding somebody else's, and they're going to use our public servants to do that. That needs to stop. Public servants need to not be able to do that and get away with it. The accountability needs to be harsh. The penalties need to be harsh. We need to scrutinize our public servants always, because that's always a possibility, and we need to have checks and balances in there. And to do that, you need transparency. You need them to operate in a way where they don't have closed door or behind door meetings with the leaders of industry and their representatives, which are high paid bribers and threateners, really. I mean, that's what's going on behind those closed doors. That's why we don't get to know what goes on there, is because it's not in our best interests. No. It's this group wants these laws to protect their interests, and it's going to harm a lot of people. And the public servant says, oh, well, they're paying me to not let that happen, right? Yeah. Well, that's fine. We'll pay you a lot more than that. And if they don't go along with it, well, we got those pictures of you on your last vacation that you took with that hooker. Or whatever it is, right? But that's what's going on. Yeah. You don't have to be a rogue scholar to understand that when your paid public servant goes behind closed doors with some representative of the industry and comes out announcing, usually buried in other news stories, late on a Friday afternoon, so it'll be gone by Monday, that they're going to make policy that's going to protect the interests of this small company or this small group of rich people over here, and the rest of you people, oh, sorry about that, or they don't even mention that. And if you say, hey, but what about us? They don't even hear that. This is what's going on. This is the world we live in. They do it all the time. It needs to stop. There needs to be transparency in what our public servants do. There needs to be accountability, because they are holding the public's trust. They are not authorities. They don't get to do whatever they want. They need to live within small margins. They need to be limited in what it is that they can and cannot do. 99% of the population does not get to overrule 1% of the population that have rights. If they're doing what they're doing and it's not hurting anybody else, then nobody else, not one person, unless they have a gun that's loaded maybe, but, people, not everybody, nobody gets to tell you can't do what you want if you're not hurting anybody else. It's your right. So public servants need to be limited like that they can't harm other people on behalf of some other people, because in the end, 28% of the population actually voted them in there. They don't get to do that. That's not what they're getting voted in to be able to do if it was done right. They'd be getting voted into a box that they can operate within to serve the public's good. And step outside of that box, and the penalties are very, very serious. I imagine a time when public servants weren't corrupt. Maybe it never happened. Yeah. Maybe it's on a planet in some other universe, in some other parallel universe.
Or maybe even another dimension.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe. But I can imagine a place, maybe in the future of this planet, where public servants are good people that recognize who it is that they're supposed to be protecting and who the enemy is. That corporate greed and desire for control and monopolization and exploitation is the enemy of the public. And their job is to make sure that the public is not exploited and monopolized and taken advantage of, gouged, and all of these things that business will do if business can do, because that's what business does. That's just it. I mean, they're an entity. It's not a particular corporation. It's not because one particular billionaire decides to do things a particular way. It's just what business is all about. Business is that way because that's what business is about. It's about maximizing your profits. It's about trying to put down the competition. It's about minimizing your expenses. It's about hiding your faults. That's what business does. They sweep things under the carpet. They exploit where they can. They take advantage where they can. They cut corners where they can.
Yep.
Because that's what business does. Because money rules the day. And okay, money rules the day. I get that. I think personally, if I'm running a business, and I've run a few of them, that if you think about your customer first, if your attitude is I'm going to provide a service that nobody else can touch, and I'm going to do it in such a way that, is really going to help people, then I think you will be successful. And that's the way of business in the future, I think. But bottom line, ultimately, all of it really is about paying your mortgage, putting food on the table, making money for your kids' futures. And so it's not really going to we can't ever count on it changing. Maybe it will. And I'm sure there's companies right now and corporations right now that don't fall under what I'm talking about, that are doing the proper way of running a business, of serving the customer and not worrying about their own pocket first. Maybe. There probably are. But you can't ever count on it. So because of that, we need to have governments that are constantly vigilant at making sure that these corporations aren't able to exploit people, to use child labor, to pay unfair wages, to use inferior products and materials, to do all of the things that they would do. That's what regulations are about. That's what we need governments to be regulating, is the way that businesses and corporations deal with the public. That's their role. But it's upside down and it's backwards, because that corporate small group of greedy rich people have the ear of our our politicians rather, and they're the ones that get their way. And it's at our expense. And it is costing us huge. And I don't know what the carbon footprint of prohibition is, because it's too big to calculate for me at this time. We're going to have to do some crunching of some numbers to think about if we can come up with it.
Yeah,
we couldn't come up with how much it hurt families and individual people, because those are intangibles and the damage is too great. And it ripples out into generations down the road. So that's incalculable, the damage that prohibition has done to individual lives and people's families in our society that way. But the monetary cost.
How many trees have been cut down, how the Amazon is being cut down right now too, and stuff like that. Right?
No, you're right. I mean, you start thinking about the different tentacles of prohibition and how they all affect our carbon footprint, or the carbon footprint.
When we were cutting trees down in 1936 when we were growing hemp, the Amazon would probably be the way it has been for centuries.
Prohibition has propped up the cotton industry, for example.
Yeah.
The cotton industry uses so much of our natural water resources that we have here. It's disgusting. It's horrible. Look into that. I mean, you probably never want to wear another cotton thing in your life. Wow. On and on it goes. It's really going to be tough to crunch those numbers. Couldn't begin to do it right now. It's extremely huge. Yeah. And then there's the other one.
Have to ask a computer to have a little.
A computer will be involved for sure.
See how it can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely horrible, and all because we have a system of our democracy that allows for our public servants to be unlimited in their power for the most part, able to get away scot-free with protecting the interests of big corporations. I mean, sure, big corporations pay a lot of wages, employers, that side of the field, there's the employers and the employees. The masses of people are employees. There's a small amount of people that are employers. The employers are not all bad. They're all trying to make money. That's all fine. Some of them aren't paying fair wages. No. Some of them are involved in shady business practices. Right. Some of them are gouging.
Especially in the States.
Some of that's going on. Not all of it. Yeah. But we need to have employers. We need to have people that are, I hesitate to say corporations. Corporate is a way of avoiding taxes, basically. To become a corporation is to protect yourself from having to be liable for a lot of different things. Stuff, yeah. And individuals become corporations. Governments are corporations. The sports teams are corporations. It's a word that means basically you've put yourself into a category where you have certain protections in place for things like that. But anyway, they're not the enemy. They are just part of life. What we need to have is a separation. They used to need to have a separation of church and state. Yep. Well, the corporations have become the churches, or that's what it is. The church has turned into corporations, and we need to have a separation of corporate and state. I mean, if you're in the business, as many governments are, of of giving subsidies and taking money from oil companies, then you probably shouldn't be involved in the regulation of those oil companies with respect to protecting the environment. If you know, same with these news organizations and big corporations that are taking lots of money from other corporations that should be scrutinized, and they're not getting scrutinized because these news organizations are financed by them. You know, they're the big sponsors. So when Pfizer is sponsoring CNN News,
you only gonna give Pfizer good news.
That's right, exactly that. Yeah. So that's what's going on. But you know what? And I didn't really quite roll it around as much as I wanted to. So maybe just a moment more. This idea of prohibiting what people ingest into their bodies that changes their frame of mind is an assault on our freedoms that we need to wake up about. Like, oh my God. If you're living a normal life and you're okay and you're not suffering from PTSD and anxiety and depression, you might be okay with it being a crime to go and get some mushrooms out of your backyard and drink them down with some vegetable juice. You know, you might be okay with, I don't care. I'm not going to do it. Don't need the mushrooms. But I'll tell you, if you've been to war, if your life has been hell, if you're suffering and can't sleep and all the other things, how angry should you be at public servants who you're paying restricting your access to a natural medicine that could help you in profound ways? I mean, how upset should we be about this? I'm totally upset for all of those people that I know that struggle mightily with these things. And many of them, you know, in my family that aren't, I'm the black sheep I'm the green sheep in my family. There's not much else like me. I come from a fairly religious family, and they're pretty straight arrows, you know. But, you know, for some of those people that have suffered in profound ways that would not take mushrooms, would not go to find someone with cannabis because it's illegal.
There'd be a lot stigmatized. But a lot less people dying of cancer if we had cannabis going too, because it does what chemotherapy does, RSO and stuff. So,
or if the Cancer Institute would really embrace cannabis, they do privately, but they don't publicly. They should publicly embrace cannabis, and then more and more people would get relief from at least the consequences of chemotherapy and other things. So this is an assault on people's thinking. This is an assault on what you get to think in your head. That's all it is. That cop with the gun is going to arrest you and put you in a fucking cage. Sorry, Barbie, but you know, what can I do? This is serious stuff. This is serious. You have to worry about your public servants that you pay taking away your freedom, fining you money, stigmatizing you to the point of jeopardizing your ability to get jobs or travel or possess your own children or so many other things, simply because you would like to choose to use some natural occurring substance that have been used for thousands of years through dozens, if not hundreds of cultures to give people relief from things. It is disgusting beyond words. I can't believe just by saying it should be over. This should go viral. The government should be, the streets should be full. The economy should stop dead until the government says, okay, we're going to suspend all hostilities against what people might or might not ingest for their own frame of mind. That's not too much to ask, is it?
No.
Anyway.
So
that's what's going on. We'll see you next week.
We're going to go out there before the parking meter ticks off.
Do that. I really appreciate you sitting in for Jerry. You're a great guest of the show and a great friend of the show.
We will see you next week,
Jerry.
We'll
see you next
week. You feel better?
Yeah.
All right. We'll take care.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that a lot. So for the rest of the show, we're going to update the CSP. The CSP stands for the Cannabis Substitution Program. You can probably see some evidence of it behind me. The Cannabis Substitution Program provides free high-dose cannabis edibles to people primarily struggling with addiction, although we've never screened people with that being a requirement. We're here on the downtown east side of Vancouver doing our work, And so that people that were willing to stand in a lineup outside of VANDU, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users Association building, for hours at a time to get a care pack with 4 to 6 high-dose edibles, were not screened for why they were there, but all of our signage and the spirit of what we were doing was to offer that as an option for people that were struggling with substance misuse with respect to opioids and other street drugs, including alcohol. And so that that became the clients of the program. We still don't screen people as far as why they're using the program, but after 3.5 years of providing that service, for the last 2 years of that twice a week outside of VANDU to people that would line up on the sidewalk to get it, thanks to a motion passed by the City of Vancouver, we moved into a storefront about 17 months ago, thinking that the city would support us. The City Council did support us with the motion that they passed. However, City Licensing would not support us with respect to giving us a license that would have allowed us to continue to operate the storefront. And they threatened our landlord, which was the reason that we had to stop. We were eventually evicted through a court case, and although we've retained the space, paying rent on it for the past over a year now, waiting for Health Canada to provide us with licenses, that has not happened to date. Once we understood that the city licensing department was not going to support our efforts and that we needed to apply for licenses, we did that immediately. Thanks to great efforts from John Conroy in putting together a wonderful application for Health Canada, although apparently for them it's very complicated because it's been over 14 months since we applied. And that application was for licenses for us to be able to just provide the service that we had been providing through the storefront at that time, which included low-cost cannabis, as well as the no-cost cannabis that the program had been offering for, now it's been almost 5 years. We are told that they're continuing to work on it. In fact, we were told a year ago, just before last Christmas, by Health Canada, by Benoit Seguin, the head of the Special Licensing and Exemption Division of Health Canada, that they figured it would be early January that they would be able to have licenses for us. But that, if he was talking about last January, that certainly didn't happen. Maybe he was talking about this January. Maybe he's talking about Januaries to come that we're not even aware of which January he meant. I'm not sure. But we have had communication with that department. We have continued to submit peer-reviewed studies that speak to the efficacy of what we're doing here and how cannabis works to get people through withdrawal. Cannabis high-dose edibles works for that, also works to replace those substances. So we're still waiting. They say they're working diligently on it every day. I'm not sure what that's costing taxpayers in Canada to have a department of people, a team of people working diligently every day for 14 months on something, but I would imagine that's very expensive to this point. Not only is it expensive on that end, but for our side of it, we've been definitely handcuffed by the lack of a license. So we moved from the storefront that we were in into an RV. We're parked right outside in an RV. We've been there for over a year now, waiting for Health Canada. Thankfully, the VPD, the Vancouver Police Department, has also backed off since that first 2 weeks of finding us in the RV providing cannabis for people, and they have not interfered with us ever since, nor has the parking department of Vancouver. We're all just waiting, hoping that at some point Health Canada does their job and provides us with a license. But in not doing that, we have been handcuffed in our ability to handle people. We have had a waiting list of over 200 that we can't get to. We can't open a bank account because the banks won't support somebody that's providing cannabis that's not supported by Health Canada. That affects our ability to do many different things. Working in a cramped space like the RV is limiting how we help people. In the storefront, we had a safe space for people, especially during bad weather. It goes on and on. So this is a very corrupt, newsworthy situation, not covered by the news media, but being reported here by this reporter through this media platform every week. We continue to come here and unfortunately say the same things over and over again because it is yet to happen that I have to report to you that Health Canada is going to provide us with the licenses that we need, and we can really move forward as an organization with legitimacy and with all sorts of great ideas in how to address this overdose situation and the dire needs within this community on the downtown east side of not just Vancouver, but many other communities across Canada that struggle with the same issues of homelessness and drug addiction and poverty. So, from here, we're going to go outside and do a brief check-in with the people out in the RV, as we always do, or almost always do. And come on with us out there. I could sing. You could have a musical interview. I could do old cannabis while we walk outside. So it was a beautiful day in Vancouver today. It's dark now, of course, but yeah, it was a nice sunny day here. We've had humongous rains last week, major flooding going on. In fact, we managed to separate from the rest of Canada, unlike Quebec has been trying to do for a long time. There was no roads in at all. There's now, I think, one artery that's coming in from the east to Vancouver. They've opened that up for supply chain vehicles only and essential travel. To this point, it's going to be weeks, if not months, before the roads are fixed. There's many bridges washed out along the highways as water came racing down the creeks. And here in Vancouver, it rained like cats and dogs, if that's a thing still. And now it's been nice for a day or two, but we are expecting heavy rains again. They're calling this an atmospheric river. We had a heat dome in the summertime, a very unusual natural weather event that brought so much heat here. It killed hundreds of people in British Columbia. And now we just had this atmospheric river that's caused all this flooding, and there's another one coming in, primarily a little more north than south this time, and the temperatures are dropping, so they're expecting a lot of freezing rain in place of just rain up there. So yeah, it's getting very serious weather at this time, and I hope everybody stays safe and that we make it through all of this. So welcome to the Healing Wave CSP RV. Our little ganja mobile has served us very well, the Scooby Dooby van as we call it, and we've been providing out of this for over a year. It's been parked right here for over a year. There's other projects or chapters of our project that I've alluded to a little bit, and I always want to make mention of those. Chris Backer in Halifax with his project there, closing in on 2 years. A couple hundred people once a week get helped out with care packs there because of Chris and his fabulous volunteers and the donators that make that happen. So a big shout out to Chris and the East Coast Cannabis Substitution Program. Mary McCarty, our head baker here for a long time, went to London, Ontario and started the Cannabis Substitution Program there back in April. She's now moved on. She just the other day arrived in Winnipeg, where she's going to do it all over again there. So the people in Winnipeg, look out for Mary and support Mary. That should be awesome. But meanwhile, William Hicks and Bev and Chris and there's one other name there that I'm forgetting, I'm very sorry, have continued on in Mary's departure, and they've been doing just a fine job of providing for people there in London, Ontario. There's a huge need there as well. 200 people line up once a week, and there's never enough. That's always the case. It's the case with us here. It always has been. It's the case with Chris. It's the case with Mary. More donators are always necessary. As you can imagine, a program like ours that runs on a weekly basis and ours on a daily basis, giving out large amounts of cannabis in the form of edibles, really require a lot on donations, and so every little bit counts, and everybody that can be part of that, please be part of that. Our project here in Vancouver was supported by so many people along the way, impossible to ever really name them all, although we should try and make a list one day. But we could never even manage to do that because people come and go, and in many cases they just drop us off stuff, or in some cases they just drop us off stuff. In other cases we have donators that have been there for years that continue every week to make sure we've got what we need, and all of those combined make a project work. So if you can't be one of the regular donators and you can be a sporadic donator, well, I'm sure that William and his team and Chris and his team and those places would really really appreciate some support. My lips are freezing out here. It's actually very cold. Let's go see what's going on. Oh, there's Jen in the window waiting for her little cameo. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
That's good. Andrew hiding in the background. George over there. Roland, we'll go see them in a minute. Let's check in at the back door.
All right.
All right, let's do that.
How's it going?
I almost gave away the secret knock.
Oh yeah, one more little tap.
So, how's it going back here? This is a CSP door, and Andrew's been looking after the program for the most part. Everybody else chips in, but Andrew's the main guy. And he's got a tray of stuff here that is donated by people that we allow our members to choose from. There's 260 plus members. They can come once every 4 days and choose from this tray 420 milligrams. So what do you got in there, Andrew?
I got all kinds of things. I'm doing the best with what we have today. We could use some more donators if they know what they're doing. We could use some more donators. I'm running out. I've got Robert's cookies. I got double chocolate, and I have chocolate chip. I have 3 cookies left.
Yeah, Robert is moving on to other things and won't be able to donate as much, if at all. We'll see how that goes.
So
but
if anybody out there wants to donate to a good cause and is already making cookies or knows how to make edibles, well, we could sure use a hand.
Very good.
I got some of these from a guy named Fraser Valley. It's 100 milligrams of CBD.
Right.
I got some of these.
Did you mention Roberta's brownies? Did I miss that?
No, we didn't do that yet.
Okay, sorry.
I just got Roberta's brownies. They're great. Yeah, we got lots of them.
She just dropped off some more, so we got a fair amount of those.
Yes, we do. I got some cubes here.
Yeah, that's Green Wilderness. They've been awesome in donating all this time. And
I make up different packages. So these are 40 milligrams each, so that's 200 milligrams.
See?
This one here, 40 milligrams each, it's 120.
Right.
Some people get 320, and then you just give them one. Get 300, and you give them one that's 320.
Tops it up for them.
Sir, these ones are ones we've had before, 50 milligram ones. Right. And another one from Robert. These are his caramels.
Right.
They're 150 milligrams each THC.
Yeah, people really like those. I hope we're going to be able to find something.
And I got some single ones because some people don't like too much at once. This is 40 milligrams.
I see.
Right?
I suspected they'd be hundreds, but they're 40s.
No, they're 40 milligrams.
Right on.
Now I got some caps here. These are keep caps.
Right.
And these are 50 milligrams each. Right. And they're pretty good.
And then we have other caps from Dirty Dave as well.
Yeah, I have some snake oil here. This is about 500 milligrams in here.
Right.
It's 1-to-1, half CBD and half honey oil. Right. And I have some more caps over here. I have some from Dirty Dave here.
Good group of stuff. We're pretty happy we're able to help people with this kind of stuff for sure.
These are the 50 milligram capsules from Dirty Dave. And
geez, I'm not.
5 milligram ones.
I should have been on this earlier. I learned last week and then I forgot this week. There we go.
These are the 5 milligrams. These are the 50s. Very popular. Very popular. People learn what they need over the years over the time coming here. They learn what they need and what they could use. Right. Well, we could use a lot of more donators, I'm telling you.
And we track everything that people take as well. So we know when they get their 420, we write down everything that they take.
I write down everything they take.
So we get a sense of what people are taking, what they want, and what works for them.
And if they come, I look up their number to see when's the last time they've come, right? Every 4 days, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, it's a program. I'd like everybody to try as hard as they can.
And most people are pretty happy to get their stuff, aren't they?
Very happy. I'm very happy to get their stuff.
And you're happy to give it out?
I love giving it out. I'm giving them back what I was out there, so I'm giving back to what was out there, right? I know how hard it is out there.
And I've also never met an unhappy donator. And all of our donators, they beam from ear to ear. They love that they're able to help what we're doing here. So
it's hard out there, so if we give back to them, they like what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And this is helping the people on the streets there. This is not going to kill them.
Yeah.
The drugs out there that right now are killing people. You need something that's going to keep you stable. Get your health back, right? You're gonna get nice and hungry. You're gonna get a few thoughts back in your head. You're gonna be clear, and you're not gonna die, and you're gonna feel great. A lot of pain out there. They want to cure that too. That's the most thing they want.
It's a non-lethal alternative to killing pain.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. All right. Well, we're gonna go. Guys. We're gonna go check out the
cheers
inside. We'll see you in a minute. So, how's things inside? A little warmer than outside.
Yeah, but it's been a nice sunny day. It's not raining.
Yeah?
It's beautiful. People have come in and loved the day, and they love it.
Yeah, it's tough when you have rain for people and they have to come to an RV, in the rain.
Yeah.
But,
it's really windy.
Yeah.
Or just cold.
Been a nice day. Everybody's been good today. Everybody's enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any stories from the week?
The week that we just started.
Well, no, the week since we were talking to the people out there at home, that there's a lot of things that can happen in a week. For me, I wrote some letters. I haven't heard anything back from anybody. So I wrote a letter to Sheila Malcolmson, the Mental Health and Addictions Minister for the BC government. I wrote a letter to Don Davies. I wrote a letter to the CBC out in London, Ontario. I almost was mentioning that earlier in the show and I didn't quite get there. But they did write an article on what the London group are doing with the CBC. But they didn't report on any of the interviews that they had there amongst the people that were in the lineup. Mary made a bunch of very, logical and true comments that needed to be reported on about our program and stuff that didn't make it into the article. What did make it into the article was a whole bunch of comments by a Stephen Laviolette at Western Ontario University, who said that he didn't know of any evidence that cannabis could be helpful for people using opioids. Well, he must be living under a rock, because there is our program for almost 5 years here with hundreds of members and a great success record for how we've been helping people with opioids. There's the video that was put together by Neil of all the testimonials that he got from our lineup. There's all the work that's done by MJ Malloy and numerous other researchers of peer-reviewed studies that have been released to show that cannabis works in dealing with people with addictions, because it works for all the different drivers of addiction. It helps people with sleep issues, with pain issues, with depression issues, and most importantly, the biggest barrier to getting off of opioids is withdrawal. And cannabis can be very effective in the form of high-dose edibles to get through withdrawal. That's the big one. Smoked cannabis doesn't work so much. It's not effective for helping people enough to get through withdrawal. Withdrawal is an extremely serious medical event that happens when you take away the opioids that your body's been used to getting on a regular, multi-times-a-day basis. When you stop doing that, your body reacts violently to that. It is hell to go through. So just smoked cannabis helps a bit, but it's not enough to relieve the hell that is, and not enough to keep people from going back and finding more opioids to use to relieve the pain. But cannabis high-dose edibles can be enough. In fact, it can be too much for people. So that's why it works. And here this fellow that the CBC decided to go and get his opinion of didn't even bother to Google it. Because that's all you would need to do is Google cannabis and opioid replacement and see what happens. Neither did the reporter in the article bother to check himself on what was out there. Just went with what this particular person said. So the corruption runs deep. It's all through the media. It's all through our government. And there's just another example. We can't seem to get the media to report on what it is that we're doing here, even though we are doing profound good through ways that are deemed illegal by our public servants. But yet when they do a story, it's biased and trying to talk people out of using it and trying to suggest that it doesn't work. And that's what that article was doing. In fact, he went on to say that he felt it could make it worse for people trying to get off of opioids. So very irresponsible to have that article printed, and for that reporter to not do due diligence in finding out the actual truth before reporting it. But then probably that's not their agenda, is to tell the truth. Probably their agenda is more to support the licensed producers of cannabis and the big dollars that they represent, and the real owners of our society and us as people. That's probably their motivation in that. And just another example, and that's what we've been providing here for all this time. Thanks to them for allowing it by not supporting us, is we have to come on and report week after week that the corruption runs deep. It runs right to the Prime Minister's office. This whole country is in trouble because of the corruption that's going on here, and the level of disrespect that our public servants have for the populace. So we'll just continue to rail on that point until they stop us by giving us the licenses that we deserve and supporting us the way that they should. For all those families out there that have lost loved ones to the opioid crisis, I wouldn't blame you for being extremely upset that the government will not support a program like ours that's trying to give other people's loved ones an option, a way out. That we're not supported by government is atrocious. And really, hits right to the heart of what's going on here in this country. We've been almost 5 years of doing this. We've harmed no one. We've helped hundreds and thousands of people. We've done it profoundly. We've done it with the support, cooperation, and the surveillance of the authorities all around us, the city councils, the harm reduction groups, the university. They all know what we're doing is good work and support us, but we can't get a license from Health Canada. It makes no sense because it's making a ton of dollars for a bunch of very unscrupulous people, and it's at and it's resulting in great harm and death to us and our society. So anyway, that's what's going on with that. That's what we've been talking about for a long time and continue to do so, and will continue to do so until there's a resolution to this. I really want to thank all the people that make this possible, the people that have donated and volunteered their time for the Cannabis Substitution Program to make that such a reality after all this time. The people that want to get the word out, the people at Cannabis Culture that for years and years have been putting out programs that are trying to educate people about the truth of what's going on with the prohibition of cannabis and the value of cannabis. Cannabis Culture has done a fabulous job, in my opinion, of being a breeding ground of activists and a place for people to come and be given a voice. And they've given me this voice that I have that you're hearing right now, and I thank them for that. They have other shows as well. There's a whole archive of lots and lots of shows that have been done over the years. Currently, there's shows that are still being produced and streamed live, including this show. There's the 420 Lifestyle Show Mondays at 420, and I understand that they're not every Monday and not, we're pretty much every Tuesday here. But some of these other shows, they don't do it quite every weekday. But if not, they're there to be found in the archives. There's lots to see on Pot TV if you go looking in there. So the 420 Lifestyle Show with Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal. Johnny B has his How's It Growing show, the important show that we have on Pot TV that helps people learn how to grow. And that's the way we can all do something to solve this, is grow your own weed for yourself. That would be great. That would help a lot. Grow weed for somebody else. That would really help a lot. Grow a whole bunch of weed. Make a bunch of money growing weed. Grow, grow, grow. Grow. Let's grow our way out of this situation.
Overgrow
the government and grow our way out of it. So do all of that. BC Bud Gal also has a show Thursday mornings, 10 a.m. Morning Glory, Wake and Bake show. There's some other things going on, and Neil's on there every once in a while with a special show, and there's some other things in the works that he's going to tell us about later, so we'll see how that all works. And thanks again to Neil for all his fine work, and to all of you for watching. And I hope that you don't just watch the show, but you take something with you and you pass it on, that it helps you make a difference in life and helps us all change the world. That we can all be a part of positive change in this world, and if we don't all take part, then we might not even get the positive change that we need to get so desperately here. So be a part of the solution and further the interest somehow of freedom and love and responsibility. Be kind to yourself in these troubling times. Don't beat yourself up. We're all just doing the best we can with what we got. Things happen. You did your best. If you could have done better, you would have, but next time, okay? In the meantime, love yourself, love everybody else. And as you're going about your life, trying to make the world a better place and having as much fun as you can, have even more fun than that. And we'll see you next week.